Today I want to talk about Beethoven's Seventh Symphony. And if you think, oh, Beethoven, classical music, maybe that's not for me, then may I give you a little tip before you say goodbye? And that's to slide the little cursor along your screen to chapter 2. And there I'm going to play some excerpts from the second movement. And if, after hearing the different excerpts that I play, you say to yourself, nah, that's not for me, then fine, at least I've tried to convince you. Okay, so let's go back. Now, not that long ago, I made a video on Beethoven's Third Symphony on the basis that it deserved a place in the great recording sequence or playlist of my YouTube playlist, on the basis that it had such a profound impact on the structure of the symphony. It was Beethoven's big breakaway. And in that video, I also talk, well, quite a bit or a little bit about Beethoven's life. So if you're interested in that, you can click through. I'll put a link in the description below to the recording on his Third Symphony. But for today, I just really want to focus on this symphony. I've chosen 6 recordings, 6 different recordings, 3 of them all played by the same orchestra, but with different conductors, and all recorded in the same hall in Vienna. So that's coming up. But first of all, a little context as always. Beethoven was 43 at the time of the performance. So it was the 8th of December in 1813. He'd had a pretty bad year, to be honest. Family problems, arguments with his brother. His health from 1811 to 1812 and in 1813 was not brilliant. He had lots of stomach problems. He was going profoundly deaf. He was suffering a lot from tinnitus. What's more, the Napoleonic Wars had caused the Austrian currency to devalue quite severely. So the big income, pension income he was expecting from his rich benefactors was going down in value, and he was having money worries. But most of all, he was in a tough place when he was writing this symphony with his love life. I mean, his love life was always hopeless. I think that's the word I would call it. And in 1811, when he started working on the symphony, he basically had gone away to a spa town to take in the waters and try and be healed of his stomach problems. And whilst he was there, he wrote a letter called The Immortal Beloved, which is a famous letter. And if you ever get a chance to read it, I'll put in some links below. It's an incredible letter. He never posted it, and there is discussion about to whom it was addressed. But it's the words of a desperate man, a sad man who had dreams and visions of women who were unattainable in any sense of the word. Maybe they're already married, maybe they're countesses, whatever. But Beethoven also had such high ideals of everything about nature and life and people's ability to perform, to write music, to play, everything. He was always trying to reach up to the heavens and to reach perfection. And his love life didn't exist, and it was obviously one major disappointment. Now, you can imagine, because he also suffered from depression, serious depression, that when he was writing this symphony, that this symphony would be miserable. It would be, I've suffered for my music, now it's your turn. But not a bit of it, not a bit of it. I was having a chat with someone just the other day about Beethoven. He was asking me, was Beethoven happy? Well, I don't think happiness is the correct word I would use. I think there were things that obviously made him happy, the walks in the nature or whatever. But he was an eternal optimist. He had this vision of a perfect world, of some kind of redemption, some kind of fulfillment in life. Heaven, I suppose you could call it. Heaven on earth, heaven. And that's why he was so angry with Napoleon, because he obviously thought that Napoleon was going to be this great emperor rising up from humble backgrounds, and a fair and decent man. But all he could see, especially as the invasion of Austria, living in Vienna, was this tyrant who sort of crowned himself king. And by the time he's written his seventh symphony, he's now celebrating Napoleon's downfall and eventual defeat, because at the concert where he is giving his premiere, as I said, in December 1813, he's also written a piece especially for the concert, which is basically Wellington's. It's like a symphonic piece, if you like, although it's not technically a piece, on celebrating the Wellington's victory over Napoleon. I think it was in Austria. The victory was in Austria. I'm not sure, but it wasn't the Battle of Waterloo. That comes later. But anyway, it's a very jingoistic, uplifting piece of music, and the premiere to which this symphony took place was actually a fundraising concert for the wounded and soldiers from the battle against Napoleon, and also for the families of those soldiers who died. So it would have been a very big audience with some famous people like the great Italian double bassist Dragonetti was there, apparently. It was a big event. And many people said, oh, it was so loud, like people complaining about a Led Zeppelin concert in the 80s, 70s and 80s. Indeed, they were loud. But I think the reason it was loud was because he chose for a 100-piece orchestra, but because he was becoming profoundly deaf. And so when he was conducting, he probably couldn't hear much. So he was getting the orchestra to play louder and louder and louder, just so he could hear them. But there were some severe criticisms of this. Now, when I was a student, I used to have discussions with my college friends, music students, colleagues, about which of the symphonies of Beethoven is the greatest. And I always used to say the ninth. It's the longest. It's got the choral ending. It's an amazing thing. But one of my friends, Neil, always said, no, Harley, I think it's the seventh, because the seventh encapsulates everything that is Beethoven in a compact and brilliantly structured piece. And its second movement is total genius. If you need an example of the height of Beethoven's genius, just listen to the second movement on its own, nothing else from beginning to end. And if you don't get it by the end, well, you'll never will, because it's such a simple theme. But we'll come to that in a minute. And you know what? In my old age, I think Neil was right. And because listening to it over and over again today for this piece, for this talk, I realised that there's a lot in this symphony that Beethoven leans on and brings back into the ninth, the rhythmic structures, the phrasing, some of the things are coming back into it. So if I was on a desert island, I'd still take the ninth because I've got the choral elements. And from these themes, I would remember the seventh, but I would really miss not having the second movement. So I think I've covered everything I should have covered about Beethoven. It was a very, very important concert, as I say, financially for him as well, and a chance to show that he's still on top in the world of music as a composer. And what a symphony it is. So why don't we get started? Now, as I said, I've chosen 6 different recordings, and I want to open the first movement. I'm going to play quite a long sequence of it so you get a feel for it, by Osmo Vanska with the Minnesota Orchestra. It's on the BIS label. It's an SACD, or it's available in SACD. Now, I'm going to give you the feel of the piece by letting it play for a while. Now, the whole symphony is in A major. It's Opus 92. Maybe I should have said that earlier. That's the number. But the opening movement is entitled or described as Poco sostenuto vivace. Now, what does that mean? Vivace is brisk, lively, brisk, vivace, go for it. And poco sostenuto means a little bit sustained, a little bit drawn, a little bit pulled out, if you like. So, don't make it too short and staccato. Draw it out a little bit. And we're going to open now with Osmo Vanska, as I say, with the Minnesota, just to give you a feel of the piece. Okay. Wonderful how this builds. And this is the beauty of Beethoven. It's so joyous, it's so uplifting, and you think it's incredible how this could happen from a person whose life was so tough. And I think that's why we love him so much today, because you feel so great when you listen to his music. Well, let's leave Osmo Vanska there. We'll come back to him later on. In fact, we'll come back to him almost straight away, because I want to focus on that opening bar. Now, you may remember I've got this thing about the opening of any great recording or any great record or piece of music. It's got to do something. Now, with live audiences, often you'll see that also in the second movement. Beethoven will start with a bomb everybody's started, shut up, and to get everything in the mood. But even in a quiet room, it's amazing, but it can make you jump. Now, I want to focus on that opening chord. Just listen to that chord and notice the length and the style by which it's performed. Let's just do it again. Right. Now, I'm going to bring in Carlos Kleiber with the Vienna Philharmonic. It's recorded in 1975 in the Musikvereinsaal in Vienna. And I want to play you a little bit of this, just to show you how he's going to handle it. Listen to this. I'm going to play it one more time for you so you can catch it once more. It's a little bit more sustained, isn't it? It's a little bit, we say verlängt, extended is the word I'm searching for. Now, let's listen to Sir Simon Rattle. Now, again, Vienna Philharmonic, same hall, the Musikvereinsaal in Vienna, in 2002, recorded live. Listen to how he does it. Very, very different opening. I hope you agree. That Poco sostenuto, could that mean what they're doing here? Whoa, he's drawing it out. Now, we're going to go to something extremely different. Same chord, Belgian conductor, Jos van Immerziel, with Anima Eterna, which is an orchestra he founded himself. Recorded in 2008, I think in the Concertgebouw in Brugge. Just listen to that opening chord. It's going to be loud. Watch out. I'm going to let it play for a little while. I love this recording. If there's any argument I could make about the interpretation, it's completely overruled by the recording quality and the fact it's playing on period instruments, so we're getting a good sound of how it would have sounded in Beethoven's time. Every instrument, the woodwinds, the double basses, bob, 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 every instrument is so crystal clear, and when you sit down and listen to it on a good system, you can hear all the instruments panned out beautifully. Now here I've just got a single mic cluster in the room. It's going to do it justice, but I'm going to put links into the different recordings so you can just go and hear it on your own system. But I really do like this recording. I think it's a marvelous thing. Sadly, the CD collection of all the Beethovens are not available at the moment. I don't know why. It seems to be some technical reason, but they're all available on streaming and probably in secondhand on Discogs. I don't know. But that is Jos van Immersiel. Now, what I'm going to do is, you could see completely the difference between the bluff and the Rattle's pulled out chord. I'm going to show you on the screen here so you can see it. I'll put Sir Simon Rattle on the top, put Immersiel underneath, and then you can see the difference. Now, obviously, a part of that spike, which we see in the post-production screen when I'm running it through my editing suite, that part of that peak is to do with the timpani, that he's really hitting it there. But it's actually showing you how he's actually playing that chord as a whoom and then drawing it out instead of the sound that you heard from Rattle. Which one you prefer is entirely up to you. There's no right or wrong here at all. Now let's just stay with Jos van Immersiel and Anima Eterna a little bit longer. We'll go further into the opening movement. Typical Beethoven phrase. Influence from nature, I'm sure. It's such a great recording. And when we talk about, in the hi-fi world, if you ever suffer from my reviews on equipment, you'll often hear me talk about the decay. When a note is hit, how that decay is formed. And there are certain pieces of equipment which will emphasize that decay that more than others. And some people love it and some people don't. And this is Van Immersiel's got that in the recording, this sort of, I call the darkness, that when there's nothing playing, it's silent. Okay, it's a later recording, 2008, and I'd like to meet him and find out how he did it, because I really don't know. It's quite different from the way I record orchestras, and I love it. Okay, so we've got to get to the end of the first movement, and I want to bring in Leonard Bernstein again with the Vienna Philharmonic in the Musikvereinssaal. It's from 1998. It's a live recording, just like the Rattle recording. And I think it'd be lovely to have him close the movement for us. So off we go. The echo dying out through the hall. That's a much more holistic recording. Technically, it's the whole orchestra is making one sound, and ever so often you really hear the individual instruments stand out. It's very much captured how it would sound in the hall if you were sitting in the audience. And that's the great thing about hi-fi and having a nice system or a good pair of headphones. I prefer 2 channels, my thing. But that's the good thing about it, is that you can, it's like a time machine. You're sitting there and you're in the Vienna Hall with Leonard Bernstein and the Vienna Philharmonic, and you're hearing some of the greatest music that's ever been composed. And we can do that. We can do it over and over and over again in the comfort of our home. But now we need to move on to chapter 2 and the second movement. If we have skipped forward from the beginning, welcome back to the chapter 2. I promise you, this is going to be special. So you can imagine the concert now. He's got through the first movement. Everybody's thinking, wow, this is loud. Okay, they're moving in their seats. They are settling down, ready for the second movement. And they're looking at their programs, and it's marked Allegretto. And what does Allegretto mean? It means a little bit lively, not very lively. So fairly brisk would be the way that an English person might describe it. If you're walking fairly briskly, it's in 2/4 time, but it's not strictly a march as you'll hear. And it is the most, for me, the most brilliant pieces of music ever written. There's so many pieces of music that you can pull back to this. In a way, I even link things like So What from Miles Davis back to this. There's so much. But because what he's doing is he's basically getting a very, very simple little tune that you think that everyone's going to get bored with after you've heard it 3 times. But he extends it and develops it and builds it without being clever, but just being perfect. For me, it's the Sistine Chapel. You know, when mankind's time is finished on this planet and people come from other planets, or the robots stare in amazement of what the humans have done, there'll be the Sistine Chapel. There will be Beethoven's 7th Symphony, second movement. Now, to open the second movement, I want to go back to Carlos Kleiber and the Vienna Philharmonic. All I can say is enjoy. I'm going to play it a little bit in to get a feel, and then we will compare with others. hopefully you're getting a hint. I wonder if anybody's watching this video who's never heard that before. It has appeared in a number of movies and stuff, but I'm trying to imagine what it would be like to hear it for the first time, and if they're thinking, I don't know what he's going on about, it's just a little tune. But give it time and it builds and it builds. I've known this symphony for as long as I can remember. I can't remember a part of my life when I didn't know it. So now we're going to have a little change. I'm going to bring Jos van Immersil back, the Belgian conductor, with his Anima Eterna, where they're playing on their period instruments, if you remember. Listen to the sound of the basses in this, and well, I'll play it. That is amazing to me. That change in pace and the tempo and the deep pulled chords, notes there in the double basses. The cello and viola sound is just amazing. Wonderful. But now we're going to go to Vanska just for the opening 4 bars to see how he copes with this, how he handles it. Copes with it is not the right Very soft, isn't it? Even the opening chord isn't a blast like we get from Jos van Immersil. It's very delicate, and he's using that drawn chord, isn't he, for the opening. A bit similar to Rattle did in the first movement. Let's see how Rattle, talking about Rattle, let's see how he's going to handle this, because that was rather slow, wasn't it? If it's marked Allegretto, a little lively or fairly brisk, you might expect it to be just a little bit quicker. Perhaps that's the perfect tempo. I think if you're a music student and you're reading all the information, you might say to yourself, I think that's right. But you could say, yeah, but it's too quick, it's not somber enough, whatever. Does it? Yeah, it needs to be somber. But as you'll see later on, it's in A minor, it will move into A major, and suddenly it's like the sun coming out, and we will get redemption. But that is still to come. Because when I was talking with my friend Stoffel de Laat, who is a sound engineer and also a bassist, a classically constrained bass player, he was saying, Harley, if you're going to do the 7th, you've got to do Carlo Giulini's version with the La Scala Philharmonic. And so I started playing a bit during the conversation. He said, no, that's the wrong one. That's the wrong one. That's the Chicago. That's the Chicago. No, this is the La Scala. It's way, way later. He said, I was doing some work with Sony, and they presented me a recording of the Giulini late version. He's 78 when he recorded this. So he's quite, very late on in his life, in his professional career. And he's got the La Scala Philharmonic, which is a sort of a small broken down, a smaller group from La Scala Milan, the Philharmonic. And he's got them in a recording studio for like 3 or 4 days to record this. So it's really something is obviously he's got it the way he wants it to be. And he said, you can't do Beethoven 7 without it. It's the ultimate recording. So this is a tribute to you, Stoffel, but actually I think he's not far wrong. It's very, very interesting. Have a little listen. It's kind of hard to see the Allegretto description, but does it matter? Not one bit. Certainly not for me. Now, I'm going to stick with Giulini because I don't want to twist and chop too much in this movement particularly. So I talked about the A major section where Beethoven, even in his somber moments, is going to give us redemption. We're going to feel lifted. We're going to get hope, belief. And we always get it from him. And even in the darkest moments, and listen to how this is done. Very simple little bass line, which everything is floating above. And Giulini is not exaggerating anything, it's just letting it float like mist across a lake. in the early morning before sunrise. Giulini. So let's move further into the second movement. If you're not convinced already, have a listen. Beethoven gives us something every minute, doesn't he? Nothing is allowed to continue for too long. He knows exactly how to communicate with us, to pull our emotions. Now, he gives us a little fugue, but it's not a fugue, it's a fugato, I think is probably the correct term, or a canon in English, a little bit later on, where he's playing with these themes. You'll hear in the excerpt I'm about to play you how that melody will be lifted and put into, copied behind one another, like we used to sing when we were children in school. And I think when I hear these things, sometimes it reminds me of that, and I'm beginning to wonder whether that's a deliberate thing. Why we like these canons so much is because it invokes for us something from our past, something from our childhood years. Who knows? Great. We're getting towards the end of the second movement, and I'm going to stick with Giulini to close it because he's done a great job up until now, and I think Stoffel will never forgive me if I don't. I think it's a great, but our symphony is not yet done. It's not yet finished. It's again, Beethoven's giving us, thanks to the symphonic form, a chance to adjust ourselves, seats, have a little cough, and get ready for the next movement. And it's no surprise that the third movement which is often called a scherzo because it's not a minuet and trio, which was often the form in earlier symphonies from Mozart and whatever. It's a presto, and it's written Assai meno presto. So you have this presto, fast, and then a much less fast. Fast, Assai meno presto, much less fast. So there needs to be a contrast between the two. And the movement is not a sonata in the sense that it's A, B, A, that you have one theme followed by another. It's A, B, A, B, A. So it's abba, if you like, instead of just abba. Where the A is the fast section and B is much less fast. We're going to open with Leonard Bernstein, and I've got a little note here that it's loud. So I'm going to hope I don't overload the microphones. I'm sure we'll be fine. So let's go for the third movement. So, again, Beethoven gives us joy, gives us hope, gives us energy. The audience must have loved this. I mean, can you imagine hearing this for the first time? Let's just see how Kleiber does it. Again, Philharmonic, Vienna Philharmonic, same hall, recorded in the same hall, but this is not recorded live. But let's see how he handles it. I think you can say that's presto. It could be even a little quicker, but it's fast, isn't it, compared to Bernstein? Now, I'm just sneaking this in once in this movement. And this is Giulini. And let's see how he handles the opening. To me, that's slow. That's like an Allegretto. I mean, it's for me, it's not presto. Question is, does it matter? It's been a long time since it was composed, and I think Giulini, at his stage of career and all the wonderful things he did and achieved, is entitled to do it how he likes. And this is, I just thought I'd drop that in to show you how it can vary so much between one conductor and another, and one person will love something and dislike the other version. So I think we need to go to Jos van Immerseel now to see how he handles it. He keeps this tempo running pretty well, and we're going to go into the B section. So here we go. Interesting phrasing there. Wah, wah, pulling things out, pulling out. That might not be to everyone's taste, but you have to admit, I guess even in this in-room recording, which is far from optimal, you can hear that this is extremely well recorded, that the orchestra, as I say, is composed of all the different instruments in this recording. Whether that's good, whether it's not, whether you like it or not, matter of personal taste. I like both, to be honest. It depends which mood I'm in. And I like the way that Bernstein handles this movement in particular. In fact, I like the whole of his performance of the whole symphony, all of them. I wouldn't have chosen it otherwise. So I'm going to bring Bernstein back to the podium to close the third movement for us. Now, you could be forgiven for thinking that's the end of the symphony, but the way they go bum, 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 you do get a feeling, don't you, that there's something else to come. And of course, in the audiences in those days would have known that symphonies by this time tended to have 4 movements to them. And here we are at the fourth movement. And we go from the key of F major in the third movement back to the key of the whole symphony, A major, for the fourth movement. And the tempo is written Allegro con brio, fast, lively. Another way of, I think, translating it or interpreting it is with brilliance is one way I've seen it translated. And everything we have is a translation. We've agreed in the music industry that we will use Italian terminology for the description of tempi throughout the industry. And everybody has their own interpretation of what fast or lively or brilliance means. And composers often put or publishers even put time bars in 106 beats per minute or whatever it was to indicate the tempo. But people choose their own tempi, and that's what makes this world of ours so fascinating. So Osmo Vanska with the Minnesota Orchestra back on the stage to open our Allegro con brio, fourth movement. Now I'll let that play a little bit because I want to give you the feel of this last movement. It's again uplifting, joyous, without the point of becoming crass. It's always got colour and depth, and every time you hear it, you'll hear something new, even after many, many years. And now I want to share with you Sir Simon Rattle with the Vienna Phil, because it's incredible how he pulls out in this movement. It can be what they call in Flemish oppervlakkig, superfluous, sort of surface level. But Simon Rattle finds something in it deep, and I call it like a dark passage, and he pulls it out beautifully here. Have a listen to this. You can hear him sort of whoa, making all these noises, obviously to pull everything he can from the orchestra in that live performance. Just incredible. Right. So we're Jos van Immerseel. Let's see how he handles same part. And see the contrast now across the orchestra between all the different instruments. You'll see these colours he really emphasises on. Now, you can discuss here, is the balance between the brass and the strings correct? He's allowed horns to come forward, and you have then a different effect on the melody even. Where is the melody? By emphasizing one instrument more than another, it changes the soundscape. Excuse me. And that's what I really like about comparing recordings and going to live concerts, because you have no idea how the conductor or how the orchestra or the soloists in the orchestra are going to perform these pieces and keep them alive and keep them real. There is no right and wrong. And I know in the comments we're going to get angry people saying, "Wow, the only recording that is of any use is Sir John Barbaroli and wherever." I don't go with that. I just think when you're listening to a version you don't like, you just need to spend more time listening to it to try and find what it is that conductor had found in there which you had not yet discovered. And only when you really fully appreciate what was trying to be achieved, I think, can we make really objective choices. Otherwise it's just personal bias, which is okay, of course. But lively. Let's go back to Osmo Vanska, bringing the brilliance, I think. I use the word brilliance as a description of Allegro con brio, brilliance, brio, with this lovely phrasing in the strings. Listen out for that. the strings are really pushing it forward without them having to be too staccato. It's beautiful how he does it. They're like waves to me. Beautiful, beautiful control of the orchestra. Now, I think we're going to go back to Giulini, and it's no surprise he's taking it at a much more leisurely pace. You can say that the orchestral sound here, I made a notice to saying it's more of a holistic sound. So you're hearing the whole orchestra more than having any one instrument stand out that we had obviously with the Vanska, with the Jos van Immersil version. It's different, and some people will love it and say it's the only version, and others will say no, Carlos Kleiber, Vienna Philharmonic, this is the correct tempo. I'm sure they'll think that, and maybe I'm agreeing a little bit, because the tempo here he's chosen I think is excellent. Again, he's got a wonderful blend across the voices of the orchestra, and every voice is true and clear. It's a really good recording, actually. Let's ask him to close the symphony for us, fourth movement, and in fact our entire symphony. And with the sound of the orchestra fading out across the hall, I hope you've enjoyed this little talk on Beethoven's Seventh. I hope you agree with me that it's a great piece of music, possibly the greatest symphony ever composed, still to be discussed. If you have been, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Enjoy the music.